Dan Shuman, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and speaking with the two of you.
We're super excited to. You're a dad. You're in the car right now to get some peace and quiet. Adam and I are all over that. We totally love that.
Yeah, it's rough times. When you're trying to record a podcast, trying to find a little bit of peace and quiet. So the car is often a pretty safe bet that no one's going to come up and interrupt me and ask me to pour something. Thank God everyone's being taken care of. My wife's upstairs with the kids, so there's no neglect going on. Don't worry. But we'll be able to talk and not be interrupted, thankfully.
Super. And I know with a beautiful family of 5, there's lots to be grateful for in this world. But what are you grateful for right now in this very moment?
Oh, I have so many things to be grateful for. I'm a very blessed person, thank God. But one recent thing, I've been trying to build a small meal prepping business from my apartment, essentially. And a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, actually just gifted me a fridge and freezer, which I'm sure with you two adopting a plant-based lifestyle, you could understand how important and how valuable freezer and refrigerator real estate is these days. So to be able to have someone who was graciously able to just gift me one is such a blessing. I feel so blessed. I'm so thankful. It's just such a nice, I mean, just in general, the support that I've gotten from people with this journey has really been the greatest thing of this whole journey. It's been beautiful, and it's something to look back to remind myself on when sometimes you forget that a little bit, and you can remind yourself, and that really helps me get through the tough days.
It's always nice to come back to those people that support you for all the things that you're doing in life. And transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle is not easy, and it's always very helpful to have people around you that can support you. Starting a business is not so easy, and having people that are going to support you in different ways is always important. And we understand that completely because we've been there. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole plant-based lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. So it was about 4 years ago now, 4 years ago in April. I had just had, my wife and I had just had our second child, our second son, and I was very unhealthy. I was very overweight, and that was always something I was very conscious of. And I wanted to change it. And I tried very hard to change that for many, many years. I tried different diets, on and off different programs. And I had minimal success here and there, but nothing lasting. And I knew it was really important for me to really strive for lifestyle change, to find something that's going to make my life different, it's going to make my habits different, something that's going to be sustainable, that just won't be a program that I'm on and then be off of it someday. And whether it's, yeah, the weight was important to me, but it was more just about health, happiness, enjoying my life. And I felt that my size at that point was really limiting that in a lot of different ways. I was also just nervous for my health, even though I didn't have any very significant health issues at the time. I was still young, but I knew that was, it was likely that I was going to experience things like that. So it was really important for me to adopt some sort of lifestyle change. So what really kicked me into high gear was I saw a documentary. It was called, oh boy, I'm blanking on the name of the documentary right now, but it dealt with the food system and how the diet culture of the United States and much of the world, and how we're in a system that's kind of rigged against us, and how diets don't work, and it resonated with me. And I decided that day I'm going to do something. I didn't know what exactly it was that I was going to do, but I was going to strive towards just a more wholesome diet, trying to eat away from processed foods was the first thing. Just like let's see if I can stick to eating non-processed foods and go from there. And then soon after, I read a book called Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and that really stuck with me. It was recommended to my dad from his physician. He had read it, he adopted a little bit of it on and off. But I always I'm a more intense version of my dad, so I'm very much like him, just up a couple steps if you're turning that knob up to 11. And so I read it, I really internalized it, and I started adopting it. I just little by little, incrementally started putting some changes that I could handle into my life. And once I got a little bit of that taste of success with it, it was really just it was easy at that point. Once I saw that I had this strength and this ability, and I use the word strength because it wasn't like it was this unbelievable moral thing that I was able to just like power and I really think having the tools and having an understanding of nutrition, having an understanding of what nourishes us, and what nourished me, it made it so much more just emotionally intelligent and easy to do once I was able to find, why am I overeating? Why am I in these situations that I find that I am in, but I don't find other people in? And if I could properly give myself the things that my body needs, I didn't find that I was in those situations so much where I would feel the need to indulge, to overindulge, and to get myself in the problems that I have. So yeah, that was how I got started.
But you had mentioned that you had some weight to lose, and maybe you can give us some perspective on how much weight you're talking about and what the timeline was for you seeing some results from that.
Yeah, sure. So at that point, I weighed about 355 pounds. It was, I knew I needed to lose at least 100 pounds. It like was too much to even think about how much I needed to lose. But so I just said, let me just try it. Let me see what's going to happen. And it was really very, very quick. Within I would say even 2 weeks, I was losing weight. But I was happy. Like I didn't feel like I was limiting myself. I didn't feel like I was hungry all the time. So once I got that like little taste of success in the beginning of just seeing the pounds dropping, feeling good really quickly, it was a very good feeling, and it really energized me to keep going. Just because it felt like I finally had control. Like I finally was in the driver's seat with this thing, and it was like in my hands. Because in the past, it just always seemed like it was. I never understood why I was having such a hard time with these things, with programs. When I would see other people be so successful with it, it was very disheartening. But eating this way, it totally made sense to me, and I was able to see immediately how it was easy to do, and it was successful with it.
So how is this different from other diets that you had been on before? Like when did it click in, and you must have had some success with some diets before as well. So why was this different?
So I was able, I'm okay with living with pain. When I was being that big, there's a lot of discomfort that you get used to on a daily basis. So I was able to put myself in an uncomfortable position at times. Let's say it was like a strict calorie counting type program. And a lot of these programs would give you some of their own branded foods to have with things. So I was able to be a little bit successful in the beginning, but I would eventually see, even with those like highly processed foods, I would never be able to eat those little portions of them and feel satisfied with them and not feel the need to then eat the rest of the box of them. So now that I was really not limiting the quantity of food that I was eating, and more just looking at the foods that are most nutrient dense, I found that the fact that they were satisfying me, that just made it a lot easier, because I wasn't getting into that starvation mode and just trying to eat whatever was around me, because I think my body was getting what it needed.
Yeah, because when you were eating, you were actually nourishing your body. You were getting nutrients into your body. You weren't getting dehydrated hamburgers to go and eat, kind of thing. And then when you were still hungry, you could go in for another salad or 2 more potatoes or whatever it is that was in front of you, because all of those foods were non-processed. All of those foods were healthy. And we do know that, if you do restrict your calories, a lot of bodies will lose weight. But if you might accidentally restrict your calories by eating plant-based, because the calorie differential is so different, but the nutrient density is there, and that's how you're able to kind of move through. So that's a really important message for a lot of our listeners who are maybe saying, I've done diets before and they haven't really worked, or they have been uncomfortable. Why is this different? I think that's a really important message. And for people who are already there, sharing that out with people who they know are in that situation.
Yeah, it was also nice for me. I'd always kind of been brought up with certain myths. Things that I learned were myths. Things that like I needed to eat meat to be successful athletically and to lose weight. And that really got in my head for a while. But then realizing and having the science, the evidence to back it up, that just made it a lot easier. I stopped worrying about all sorts of things, about when I was going to eat, about, like skipping meals. I don't think anybody should necessarily intentionally skip meals without the guidance of a medical professional or something. But one thing I learned was to eat a little bit more intuitively. I didn't have to force myself to eat something if I wasn't hungry. And it was more just like listening to my body, and being able to recognize that difference between actually being hungry or just compulsively eating. That was very, very helpful for me to recognize.
Yeah, a lot of people mindlessly eat throughout the day, and they really don't have that awareness around food and the impact that the food has on their body or their mind. What was the biggest challenge for you going through this whole process? Because I'm sure there were a lot of challenges. So what
Absolutely.
was the biggest one for you?
One of the bigger challenges was just socially. It was a little hard at times. It still can be a little challenging at times. I definitely not so bad that I would consider not doing it. I was much happier with my success at it than whatever negative outcomes I was having with socially at all. And ultimately, it really was only a benefit to me socially, but it was just something to navigate. I live an Orthodox Jewish lifestyle. Food is a really big part of our life. And people really take it as a challenge when you're talking about something that's so radically different than from what they were brought up with or understand to be true in certain ways. So a lot, I think I've gone through changes with it too. I was a little bit more in your face about it. I think in the beginning, if somebody would give me a hard time about it, I would start debating them on it. I think I'm a pretty decent debater, and I would go decently hard at people. I've learned to take a step back of that a little bit, to calm down. But it was seeing that success and feeling as good that I did. I kind of had to resist that urge to just want to scream it from the mountaintops, and just also the fact that there's just so many people suffering unnecessarily. You really want to help people. You want to, because I just felt like I was ignorant for so many years, and if someone would have just told me something, who knows what could have been earlier. I know that's not a great way to dwell on the past too much. So that was where the motivation came from, at least. So yeah, it was challenging, but I figured ways through it. I tend to try to focus when somebody is arguing or debating, I should say, this lifestyle. I like to try to focus on where we see eye to eye, because ultimately I do very much believe that there's very few people who don't agree that a plant-predominant lifestyle is healthiest, and is what she would be doing for a variety of different reasons. So that's where I've transitioned to.
I think it's very common for people who just start off and feel so good to really be on the top of the mountain, yelling down at everybody. But as you go through the process, you start to realize that while you're up at that top of the mountain, everybody will start looking up to you and see the differences that you have made in your life, and you become a role model and example for so many people. Congratulations on all your progress and your continued success. It's really amazing.
How much weight have you lost to this day?
170 pounds.
Wow.
Altogether.
It's a whole person.
Yeah, that is a whole person.
Sorry, yeah, but that's what it was. People were able to see that success. Once people were starting to notice it, they were seeing me get out every day, go out on my bike. People got really interested, and people wanted to talk about it. I started an Instagram page just because so many people wanted to know what I was eating. So that was just a quick way to put things up there and show, this is what I'm eating, this is what I'm doing, and it was kind of like becoming a mini celebrity in certain ways. There's good things and there's bad things with that. We can delve into if we have time, I guess. But that was a big part of it, was people seeing my success, seeing how much more alive it made me, how much more present in my community life, my family life, with my kids, with my wife. It was undeniable.
So I want to put a pin in that, and there's a couple of things I want to come back to, like living the Jewish Orthodox life and being in social situations like what we're talking about now. But I just want to pivot back for a minute to when we were talking about the patterns. You started to talk about where you used to eat in certain situations before. So what are some of those patterns where you used to eat before that you were able to overcome and have more self-control over moving forward?
So one pattern that I was in, I worked, my day job currently that I manage residences for individuals with developmental disabilities, group homes, supportive apartments. And I started off when I was in college working one-on-one with children directly in the school setting. So it was a long day, and I wouldn't necessarily always have the foresight to plan a lunch. I was young, obviously wasn't taking care of myself too well. And what I would do was that in the middle of the day, the second I'd start feeling like a little shaky or a little hungry, I'd go to the snack machine and I'd buy a Coke or a vanilla Coke. That was like my go-to thing. And that would like give me a little boost to get through the day. And I kind of turned that around. I remember thinking as I was learning about it, I'm like, well, what can I change that with? That's something that's going to nourish me. And so I started drinking more green smoothies. I'd start like making myself that. Let's say I woke up, I wasn't hungry. I'd make myself a green smoothie. And that was like this, for me, was a more nutrient dense thing to kind of replace that with. And, I definitely recognize that there are better options to be eating regularly every day than smoothies. Smoothies are great, don't get me wrong, but, there's lots of talk about the benefit of chewing your fruits and vegetables and all of that. But for me, that was just an easy, quick switch and something that I immediately felt so much better when I would go to that green smoothie. That was like the one food in the beginning that really got me into this was a green smoothie for sure. So that was like a real just part of my like routine that started to change. But then also, like I was mentioning before, being able to recognize when I was eating and for what reasons I was eating has been super beneficial. So once I started getting more control of it, I would start to realize if something really stressful was going on. I got a phone call from work that was stressing me out. I noticed I was starting to reach for something. And it might have been something nutritious. It might have just been grapes or a cut up mango or something that I had around. But it was able to give me that realization of, wait a minute, I'm not eating because I'm hungry right now. I'm eating more compulsively or more just for emotional reasons than anything else. And being able to recognize that was very, very helpful.
Thank you. I think that's helpful for a lot of people to hear.
What allowed you the ability to recognize those things? What helps you build that awareness? Like, where did that come from? How did you just figure that out? Because a lot of people struggle with everything's busy. Life is fast. Everybody's trying to do the fast thing, the quick thing. But it takes something, I think, to trigger someone to be able to build an awareness around our nutrition. Was there something specific that triggered you?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's anything specific. I think it was more just long-term, being able to recognize when I felt full, when I felt satiated, and being able to just like have that mindfulness at that time to realize when I was going for something that I really wasn't hungry at that point. I think I was always constantly in a perpetual state of hunger. Even though I was consuming a lot of calories every day, I was still always hungry. And I think learning about how those, especially the processed foods, how they're designed to get you to overindulge in them, that made a lot of sense to me to realize, yeah, I'm eating a lot, but I'm still never feeling satisfied because that's the way these foods are designed. There's lots of people, lots of companies that spent a lot of money and a lot of scientists that have dedicated a lot of time to figuring out how could you make these foods super craveable, and that you don't stop just because you consumed a lot of them. So gaining that understanding of what nourished me and then actually feeling that nourishment really was the game changer for me in stopping or at least getting a handle on overindulging and putting my cards all on the table. It's not that I don't indulge from time to time. I still, I'm not even a vegan fully. Like I eat a plant-based diet almost all the time, but I won't say like in certain situations that I wouldn't indulge in an animal product. It's just not what I eat normally. And the same thing for like junk food, maybe once in a while, much less. I find it much less alluring than I used to. But now I just have that understanding that that's not going to make me satiated. And it ultimately, like I felt like it was kind of hurting myself because it's almost like gaslighting in a way. Like you eat these foods and you're told that they're going to nourish you, that you're going to feel good from it, and you don't. And I felt very gaslit and like, why am I not feeling this way? Why do I not feel full from these things? Why am I still going? Why isn't this working for me when it works for everybody else? Like it really doesn't work for everybody else. It's just marketing makes it seem like it's working for everybody else. So that was really it for me, I would say.
I think that's a huge point because so many people will come to me and say, I tried it, but it didn't work for me. Or how come I've been doing this for 3 months and other people have lost 30 pounds in 30 days? And those are well, first of all, marketing is a thing, right? So Adam and I won't go and put out, like that you can do this when it's not true on any of our, posts that we're putting out. But when people are getting those results so quickly, those are the people who are screaming the loudest. And when people aren't, they're not saying, oh, but, or if it's taken them 2 years to finally get the groove, they don't talk about that because they're embarrassed that it took them that long when everybody else is getting those results. So you're constantly hearing from the people who have gotten really fast results, but that it doesn't work like that for everybody. So hold on. And although plant-based diet can and will work for everybody, for some people there's still some little tweaks, and there still might be some underlying factors like hormonal issues, like autoimmune diseases that might take you longer or that you might need to address, or maybe your body does not react well to a certain food that's a food that you're eating quite often. So there are small little tweaks within the diet that need to happen for certain people. All right, so let's go back to when we were talking about, social situations and things like that. The day we met you was Purim. And for those people out there who aren't like that, it's a holiday that celebrates actually the victory for the Jews, but that was led by a Jewish woman. So it's the first time we've seen a woman be a heroine in the Jewish religion, which is very fitting, for when we just had March. So March was, our Women's Month and all of that. But Purim is a holiday where you are surrounded by every candy, every treat imaginable. People actually make plates of treats and bring them over to other people's houses. And before you know it, you have like your whole kitchen table is just filled with food all the time. So when you're in situations like that, how do you, there is the opportunity to indulge sometimes, but how do you make sure that you're not indulging 24/7 until it's all gone? What tools have you put into place?
So it was a little choppy, but I think I got most of the question. So Purim is absolutely a time, and people just literally deliver plates of food and baskets of candy to your house, and it can absolutely be a challenging time. A big part of it for me is giving myself that emotional intelligence to understand that if I do indulge in something, and if I overindulge in something, that's an expected outcome. These, again, like I was saying before, these foods are designed that way to get you to be alluring, to get you to indulge in them. So if that number one, if that happens, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to be able to bounce back. It doesn't have to mean that day is over. It doesn't have to mean that week is over. There's no such thing. It's second to second, hour to hour of the day. You can be making a poor decision at one moment and a great decision the next moment. Because I've gotten in those horrible snowballing situations that I found to be personally very destructive. But to stay away from that stuff, what I found is to prepare something, to have something ready to go. For me, a lot of the times, like I was saying before, it's like a green smoothie. If I have that in the morning, I know I've gotten a huge amount of greens in me that day. I've gotten, some hemp seeds, some chia seeds, some flax. I've gotten some veggies, some fruit. It's in there, so I'm less likely. So yeah, it's really just having other things around that I can go to, having a little bit of that foresight to plan a little bit, maybe cutting up some vegetables, cutting up some fruits I have around. But again, just also having that emotional intelligence to understand, like, if this stuff is around and you grab it, don't kill yourself about it. It's fine. You're going to be okay. You're going to get, just make the next decision better. So yeah.
I think that's a great strategy to go with. I want to come back to what we started off talking a bit about with your moment of gratitude and the business that you've started around meal prepping. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to share what you've been doing. And I really want to know how you went from losing all this weight to deciding that, oh, I'm going to start this meal prep business. So why don't you share a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's very, very small. It's not really much to plug at this point, honestly, as far as the business goes. But the journey is, I lost all this weight. I've been cooking all this food. I've always loved to cook. I've always been the cook in my family and my friend group. I had apartments together with a bunch of friends when I was single, and I was always the one cooking meals. I love food is a really important thing to me, and that's another reason why this lifestyle appeals to me, is because I really don't think it's about abstaining from foods. It's more about elevating foods, and I've become a much better cook from embracing this. I have a much better understanding of flavor, of ingredients, of what makes a dish taste the way that it does. I've had to mimic certain experiences that I've enjoyed in the past. So it was, everyone kind of knew that I liked to cook. Everyone had already experienced my cooking a lot. So people were asking me, really just like, can you cook for me? I want to give this a shot. I just don't have the time for it. Can you cook for me? And that's really where it came from, and that's honestly where it is even today. I've never actually advertised anything. It's all just people who are kind of reaching out to me, asking me to cook for them. I've had people that ask me to come do demos in their house. I've done a few of those. I speak at certain events. I've gotten connected with certain plant-based organizations in my area, and I've gotten to talk to people that way. My Instagram has enabled me to connect with thousands and thousands of people across the world. So yeah, it was just more people seeing what it is and kind of wanting to experience it, wanting to be a part of it. So that the way I do it is I hope that it's educating people and modeling a way that they can do this. In my culture, food, especially where I live now, it's a real disaster the way people eat a lot, and for a lot of different reasons. And I'm just trying to model an alternative for people, trying to people to see that there's other ways of doing this that doesn't have to mean that you're just eating grass all day and that you're unhappy and that you're not eating. You can really enjoy and get into this, and it could be a very positive experience.
Well, we're really happy that you're doing that and that you're helping other people. Can you let everybody know what your Instagram is, what area you are able to service them in case they're like, dude, I need someone like Dan in my life? And where else would you like them to go to find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was a little choppy. I didn't hear the
No
question.
problem. Let everybody know what your Instagram is, where else they could find more about you, and what area do you live in case they want some food service for
Sure.
themselves. They'll be able to reach out.
My Instagram handle is @Daniel's Manual. I'm on Instagram, and I live in Far Rockaway, Queens, New York City. So it's on the Queens, Long Island border.
Amazing. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast. You are such an inspiration to so many people, and having you here just sharing your story, we really do appreciate getting to know you better, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Adam and Shoshana. It's really been a pleasure meeting you. I've been listening to your podcast for quite some time. I've been following you for a while, so I feel very blessed to have been able to connect with you and be able to speak with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.